I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I just stopped existing in the life I used to live. One moment, I was a woman everyone thought they knew. The next, I was gone. No forwarding address, no explanations, no apologies. People like to believe disappearances happen because of weakness, that someone broke. But the truth, I left because I finally got strong. I'm sitting in a small apartment now, second floor, narrow balcony, one stubborn plant that refuses to die. No shouting, no doors slamming, no one watching my every move like they're waiting for me to mess up. And for the first time in years, I can breathe. I'm 69 years old. Most people my age are settling into routines, not running for their lives. But I ran. Not from a stranger, not from the law, not from debt. I ran from my own family. From a son who learned how to smile while sharpening the knife. From a daughter-in-law who mistook kindness for weakness. From a plan so quiet and calculated that I almost didn't hear it forming around me. Almost. If I hadn't listened to that small voice, the one we're taught to ignore, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be somewhere else, someplace locked, someplace controlled, someplace where my name would still be mine, but my life wouldn't. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about escape. And if you stay with me long enough, you'll understand why I don't miss a single thing I left behind. Before everything collapsed, my life looked ordinary from the outside. Quiet, stable, almost boring. And for a long time, I believed that meant I was safe. My name is Evelyn Harper, and for nearly 4 decades I lived in the same 2-story house on a tree-lined street where the mailman knew my name and the neighbors waved but never stopped to ask questions. That house wasn't fancy, but it was solid. Brick, warm in the winter, filled with memories that clung to the walls like fingerprints. I raised my son Andrew there. His father died when Andrew was 8, a sudden heart attack, one phone call that split my life into before and after. I didn't fall apart, not because I was strong, but because I didn't have the luxury. There were bills, school lunches, shoes that didn't fit anymore. Grief had to wait. I worked double shifts at a medical billing office, learned how to stretch leftovers, learned how to smile even when my chest hurt. Andrew grew up knowing I was always there. Too much, maybe. I didn't date, I didn't travel, I didn't build a life outside of being his mother. And when he married Rachel, I thought I was being rewarded for all those years of sacrifice. Rachel was charming in a precise, controlled way. Her smile never reached her eyes, but I told myself that didn't mean anything. Not everyone shows warmth the same way. That's what I told myself the first time she corrected me in my own kitchen, the first time she rolled her eyes when I forgot a detail. They moved in temporarily. That word stretched into years. At first, I was happy not to be alone. I cooked, I cleaned, I adjusted. I ignored the quiet changes, the way my opinion stopped being asked for, the way decisions about my house were suddenly discussed without me. Rachel's family became frequent visitors, her parents, her sister, her brother-in-law. They walked through my home like inspectors, commented on the value of the neighborhood, asked about the mortgage. I answered every question honestly because I didn't know any other way. Looking back, I see the pattern, how they tested boundaries in small, harmless ways, how Andrew slowly stopped calling me Mom and started calling me Evelyn when Rachel was around, how I started feeling like a guest in my own home. But at the time, I believed love meant patience. I believed endurance was virtue. I believed if I just stayed quiet, stayed helpful, stayed useful, everything would work itself out. I was wrong, very wrong. And I didn't know yet that people who stop seeing you as human don't suddenly start again. They just get bolder. The first time I realized something was off, it wasn't because of what was said, it was because of what wasn't. Dinner used to be loud. Andrew telling stories from work, me complaining about my knees. Even Rachel would chime in, correcting details, steering the conversation back to herself. It wasn't perfect, but it was noise, and noise meant life. Then the noise faded. Conversations stopped when I entered the room. Laptops closed a little too quickly. Phones turned face down on the table. When I asked simple questions, "What are you two up to this weekend?" the answers were vague, unfinished. Just stuff, taking care of things. You don't need to worry about it. That last sentence became Rachel's favorite. You don't need to worry. She said it with a smile that felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in the mirror. Every time she said it, my stomach tightened just a little more. I started noticing patterns. Andrew asking for access to accounts he'd never cared about before. Rachel suddenly offering to help manage paperwork. Her parents asking oddly specific questions about property taxes, home equity, resale value. Once her mother laughed and said, "This house could really set a young couple up nicely." I laughed too, because that's what women like me do when something makes us uncomfortable. We laugh and swallow it. I told myself I was being paranoid, that age makes you suspicious, that this was just how families worked now, messy, overlapping, complicated. But my body knew something my mind refused to accept. I started sleeping lightly, waking up to the sound of whispers drifting down the hallway. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, listening to my own heart beat too fast for no reason. One afternoon, Andrew came into the kitchen while I was washing dishes. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, eyes avoiding mine. "Mom," he said, "we might need you to sign a few things soon." My hands froze in the sink. "What kind of things?" "Just paperwork. Nothing big. You trust me, right?" The question felt wrong, too direct, too heavy for something that was supposed to be nothing. I dried my hands slowly, looked at my son, the boy I used to carry on my shoulders, the teenager who cried when he left for college. "I trust you," I said, but the words tasted strange in my mouth. That night, I sat alone in my bedroom and tried to remember when my life started feeling like a waiting room, like something was happening just beyond my reach, and I was the last to know. I thought about my house, how every corner had been paid for with years of quiet sacrifice, how it wasn't just property, it was proof that I had survived. And for the first time, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. What if they don't see it that way? What if they don't see me that way? I pushed the thought away, told myself I was being dramatic, but once a crack forms, it doesn't close again. It spreads. And somewhere in the silence of that house, something had already begun to break. The request came on a Thursday afternoon, wrapped in the casual tone of someone asking for sugar. Andrew stood in the doorway of my bedroom, holding my wallet. "I grabbed this from the kitchen," he said. "I need your cards for a few days." Not one, all of them. I sat on the edge of my bed, the late sunlight cutting across the floor in long stripes. My chest tightened in a way I couldn't explain. "All of them?" I repeated. Rachel's voice floated from the hallway. "It's just temporary, Evelyn. We're handling some expenses together. It's easier if we don't split things up." Easier for who? Andrew stepped closer. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll give them back by Monday." Monday. A clean promise, a neat ending. I wanted to say no. I felt it rising in me, sharp, unfamiliar, but years of habit pressed it down. Mothers don't question. Mothers trust. Mothers don't make things awkward. So I handed him the cards. He didn't thank me. That should have been the moment I stood up, the moment I said something. But I didn't. I watched him walk away, watched Rachel smile at me like we shared a secret. That night, I couldn't sleep. I checked my banking app. It wouldn't load. Error message. Try again later. Friday morning, still nothing. I called the bank. They told me everything looked fine, but nothing felt fine. Over the next few days, Andrew and Rachel were barely home. When they were distracted, glowing in a way that felt wrong. New clothes appeared. Rachel mentioned reservations at places I'd never heard of. On Saturday, Andrew told me they were going out of town for a few days. "A little getaway," he said. "We need a break." I nodded. Didn't ask where. Didn't ask why, because I was tired of feeling like an inconvenience. The house felt different after they left. Too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I cleaned to keep my hands busy, wiped counters that were already clean, rearranged drawers. That's when I opened their bedroom door. I wasn't snooping. That's what I told myself. I just wanted to open the window. That's when I saw Andrew's old phone on the desk, still charging, still on. I picked it up without thinking. No password. A notification banner lit up the screen. A group chat. The name made my stomach drop. Rachel's family. I should have put the phone down. I didn't. The first message I read called me the old woman. The second joked about me being easy to handle. My hands started shaking. And then I saw it. A message from Andrew. "She won't notice. She never does." I sat down hard on the edge of the bed because in that moment I understood something that changed everything. This wasn't carelessness. It wasn't misunderstanding. It was a plan, and I was standing right in the middle of it. I don't remember how long I sat there holding that phone. Minutes, maybe, or hours. Time does strange things when the ground drops out from under you. My thumb hovered over the screen, trembling. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, to put the phone back, to pretend I hadn't seen anything. But another voice, stronger now, said, "Read everything." So I did. The messages stretched back weeks, then months. Rachel's mother talking about lawyers, her father mentioning options if I became confused, her sister laughing about how old people never check their statements, and then Andrew again, my son, typing words that didn't sound like him, but came from his name all the same. She's slowing down. The house is too much for her. It's better if we handle things before she messes it up. I felt physically sick. They talked about my life like it was a broken appliance, something outdated, something to be replaced. One message made my vision blur. Once the paperwork's done, she won't have a choice. Paperwork. That's what Andrew wanted me to sign. I kept scrolling. There were photos, hotel rooms, expensive dinners, beach views. Someone joked about how my cards had great limits. Someone else said, she worked all her life for this, might as well enjoy it. I dropped the phone onto the bed. I couldn't breathe. My chest hurt in a deep, heavy way, like grief pressing from the inside out. Not sharp, not dramatic, just crushing. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't family tension. This was theft. This was betrayal. And the worst part? They didn't think I'd ever find out. They thought I was invisible. I thought about every time I defended Andrew, every time someone hinted he took advantage of me, and I brushed it off. He means well. He's just stressed. He loves me. I'd been protecting him from the truth, and he'd been using that protection against me. I wiped my face and forced myself to keep reading. There it was, the full plan. Get control of finances, get signatures, document forgetfulness, move me somewhere manageable. A facility. They talked about it casually, like choosing paint colors. My hands curled into fists. I wasn't confused. I wasn't incapable. I wasn't weak. But I had been trusting, and trust in the wrong hands is dangerous. The sun was setting by the time I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. My body felt hollow, like everything inside me had been scooped out. I walked into the living room and sat down. The house looked the same, but it wasn't. It wasn't my home anymore. It was a place where people smiled at me while planning my erasure. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I sat very still and listened to my own breathing, because something inside me had shifted. The woman who believed love meant endurance was gone, and in her place, someone else was waking up. Someone who understood one terrifying truth. If I didn't act first, I would lose everything, including myself. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was panicking, but because my mind wouldn't stop working. There's a difference between fear that paralyzes you and fear that sharpens you. I had lived with the first kind for years, the fear of being alone, the fear of losing my son, the fear of rocking the boat. But this was different. This fear didn't make me small, it made me alert. I sat at the kitchen table until dawn, staring at the same crack in the wall I'd passed 1,000 times without noticing. My hands were steady now, my breathing slow. If Andrew and Rachel were capable of planning something like this, then confronting them would be a mistake. They'd deny everything, twist it, make me sound unstable. They were already prepared for that version of me. So I needed a different version. I needed proof. I needed time. And most of all, I needed to disappear before they realized I knew. The first thing I did that morning was call the bank. I didn't accuse. I didn't explain everything. I simply said my cards were missing. The woman on the phone paused. Then her tone changed. "There's been unusual activity," she said carefully. My stomach dropped anyway. Luxury charges, hotels, restaurants, thousands of dollars. I closed my eyes. "Cancel them," I told her, "all of them, immediately." Next, I called a lawyer, not a family friend, not someone Andrew might know, a stranger. His voice was calm, professional. He listened without interrupting while I explained everything, carefully, clearly, without emotion. When I finished, he said one sentence that changed everything. "You need to act before they do." By noon, I was taking screenshots of every message on that phone, every joke, every plan, every insult. By afternoon, I was packing essentials, not everything, just what mattered, documents, photos, a few clothes. I didn't cry while I packed. I didn't look back, because once you see the truth, you don't get the luxury of denial anymore. That evening, Rachel texted me a smiley face and said they were having the best time. I replied, "I'm glad," and meant something very different. That was the last lie I told in that house. By the time Andrew and Rachel returned, they expected a quiet, compliant woman waiting exactly where they'd left her. They never expected an empty space. They never expected silence. They never expected that the woman they underestimated had already walked away with everything they couldn't take from her. Once the decision was made, everything moved faster than my emotions could keep up with. It had to. I gave myself one rule: do not hesitate. Hesitation is where fear sneaks back in. I told no one in the house what I was doing. I smiled when Rachel called. I answered Andrew's texts like nothing had changed. Short, polite, unremarkable. That was my shield. Behind it, I worked quietly. The lawyer helped me understand something that shocked me. I still had full control. The house was legally mine. No power of attorney, no signed documents, no leverage yet, which meant I still had time, but not much. The solution he suggested felt brutal when I first heard it. Sell the house. I stared at him through the screen, my reflection faintly visible in the laptop camera. "That house is my life," I said. "And if you keep it," he replied gently, "it may become your prison." That was the moment I understood. A home only protects you when it's safe. When it isn't, it's just walls. I contacted a real estate agent the same day, told her I needed speed, not perfection, cash buyers, quick close. She didn't ask why. By midweek, offers were already coming in, lower than market value, painfully lower. I accepted one anyway, because this wasn't about money, it was about escape. Each night, after packing another box, I sat on the edge of my bed and looked around the room where I'd spent decades. I didn't romanticize it. I didn't cling. I said goodbye silently to the woman I used to be, to the version of motherhood that required self-destruction. I canceled utilities, redirected mail, opened a new bank account in another state. I chose a place where no one knew my name. On Thursday, I signed the final papers. My hands didn't shake. The check felt light in my purse, like it didn't belong to my past or my future, just the bridge between them. That night, I left a letter on the kitchen counter. Not angry, not begging, just clear. I know what you planned. I know what you said. Do not look for me. I locked the door behind me and didn't turn around. For the first time in my life, I walked away without asking permission. The bus station smelled like coffee and old vinyl seats. I chose it on purpose. Airports leave trails, tickets, names, timestamps. Buses don't care who you are as long as you pay and sit down. I boarded just before sunrise, carrying one suitcase and a purse that held my entire legal identity. As the engine rumbled to life, something inside me finally cracked, not in pain, but release. I didn't cry. I felt empty. And for the first time, that emptiness felt like peace. While the bus rolled through unfamiliar highways, I imagined the moment Andrew and Rachel would come home. I pictured their car in the driveway, the key turning in the lock. I wondered how long it would take them to realize. The house would be quiet, too quiet. No lights, no furniture, no me. At first, they'd think it was a mistake. Then they'd see the papers, the sold sign, the utilities shut off, the letter. I wasn't there to hear the shouting, but I didn't need to be. I knew the order of things. Denial, rage, accusation, blame. Andrew would panic. Rachel would scream. Someone would threaten lawyers. Someone would cry. But here's the thing they never understood. You can't manipulate someone who's no longer present. By the time the bus crossed state lines, my phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls, voicemails, texts stacking up like wreckage. I didn't listen to any of them. I turned the phone off. That was my final act. When I arrived, it was late afternoon, a small city, clean sidewalks, no memories attached to any corner. I rented a short-term apartment under my own name, signed the lease with a calm I didn't recognize. When the door closed behind me, I leaned against it and laughed softly, not because it was funny, because it was over. The next morning, the lawyer called. "They're panicking," he said. "They tried to contest the sale. They can't. Everything is airtight." He paused. "Rachel's parents are furious. Your son is not handling it well." I thanked him and ended the call. I made coffee in my unfamiliar kitchen and watched steam rise from the mug. No footsteps above me, no whispers behind doors, just silence. Days passed. Then a message came through an email I hadn't blocked yet, from Andrew. It wasn't an apology. It was an accusation. "How could you do this? We were trying to help you. You ruined everything." I read it once, then deleted it, because I finally understood something that took me nearly 70 years to learn. People who benefit from your silence will always call your boundaries cruelty. I didn't ruin anything. I escaped, and the silence I left behind, it wasn't emptiness, it was consequence. Survival doesn't feel heroic. No swelling music, no applause. It feels quiet, uneven, heavy in places you didn't expect. The first week after I arrived, I barely left the apartment. I slept strange hours, ate when I remembered. Every sound outside the door made my shoulders tense. Even when danger is gone, your body doesn't forget it right away. I'd wake up convinced I'd heard Andrew's voice in the hallway or Rachel's sharp laugh. It took a few seconds each time to remember they don't know where I am. That thought became a kind of anchor. I started walking in the mornings, same route every day, a small park 2 blocks away. I sat on the same bench, watched the same dog chase the same tennis ball. Repetition helped. It reminded me I wasn't running anymore. But the grief came anyway. Not for the house, not for the money, for the son I thought I had. I mourned the Andrew who used to fall asleep on the couch with his head on my shoulder, the boy who called me from college just to ask how to cook pasta. That boy was gone, and I had to accept that he didn't disappear overnight. He changed slowly, quietly, while I was busy forgiving things that shouldn't have been forgiven. One afternoon, I finally listened to the voicemails. His voice was frantic, angry, accusing. "You embarrassed us. You destroyed our future. You owe us an explanation." Not once did he say he was sorry. I deleted every message. That night, I cried for the first time since leaving. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears sliding down my face in the dark. Because survival means letting go of the fantasy that love alone can fix everything. It can't. Some people don't want connection. They want control. And when you stop being useful, they stop being kind. Weeks passed. I furnished the apartment slowly. A secondhand chair, a lamp with warm light, a plant that needed daily care, something alive that depended on me in a healthy way. I joined a library book group, sat quietly the first few meetings, listened to other women talk about loss, divorce, estrangement. I realized how common my story was. Different details, same wounds. One woman said something that stayed with me. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave without being understood. That sentence unlocked something in me. I stopped waiting for Andrew to understand. I stopped rehearsing explanations in my head. I stopped imagining reconciliation. Instead, I focused on something new. Peace. Not the fragile peace of pretending, the real kind, the kind that exists when no one is watching you, measuring you, planning around you. I wasn't healed yet, but I was safe, and safety, I learned, is where healing begins. The final confrontation never happened the way movies promise it will. No dramatic reunion, no tearful apologies, no moment where someone finally gets it. What happened instead was quieter and permanent. One morning, a few months after I disappeared, I received a certified envelope forwarded by my lawyer. Inside was a single letter from Andrew, not typed, handwritten. The paper was creased, like it had been folded and unfolded 100 times. I didn't open it right away. I made coffee first, sat by the window, let the sun hit my face. Then I read. It wasn't an apology. It was confusion dressed up as regret. He wrote about how everything fell apart after I left, how Rachel blamed him, how her family turned cold, how the debt followed him like a shadow. He wrote about sleepless nights, about how unfair it all felt. Unfair. That word sat heavy on the page. Toward the end, he wrote, I don't understand why you couldn't just talk to us. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope, because here was the truth I finally accepted. People who plan in secret don't deserve explanations when their plan fails. I didn't owe him closure. I didn't owe him forgiveness. I owed myself peace. That afternoon, I walked to the park and sat on my usual bench. The same dog ran past, the same breeze moved through the trees. Life kept going, simple, indifferent, steady. And for the first time, I realized something important. My story didn't end when I left. It began. I wasn't a victim who escaped. I was a woman who chose herself. Late, yes, but fully. I stopped checking old emails, stopped wondering what version of me they told others about. Let them keep their narrative. I didn't need to correct it, because the truth was already living in my body, in the way my shoulders relaxed, in the way my breath came easier, in the way I slept through the night without fear. This apartment isn't big, it isn't impressive, but it's mine. No one whispers behind closed doors here. No one measures my worth in assets. No one waits for me to weaken. I cook when I want. I rest when I'm tired. I speak when I choose. And silence, real silence, no longer scares me. It comforts me. If you're listening to this and you feel that tightness in your chest, that quiet dread you can't name, listen to it. It's not paranoia, it's awareness. And awareness is the beginning of freedom. I didn't disappear because I was weak. I disappeared because staying would have destroyed me, and walking away, without permission, without apology, was the bravest thing I ever did. If this story made you stop for a second, if even one part felt too familiar, then this wasn't just a story for entertainment. It was a mirror. Sometimes the most dangerous cages don't have locks. They're built from guilt, obligation, and the fear of being alone. If you're in that place right now, quietly shrinking, quietly enduring, remember this. Walking away doesn't make you cruel. Choosing yourself doesn't make you selfish. And starting over doesn't mean you failed. It means you survived. If this story helped you, moved you, or gave you courage, like the video so it reaches someone who needs it. Subscribe for more real emotional stories about strength, betrayal, and quiet resilience. And leave a comment if you've ever had to choose peace over people. Your voice matters, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to stay silent anymore.